The Crimson Tide are back in action tomorrow, so if you guys are ready for A-Day, make sure you drop a like on today's video and show your excitement for the Alabama Crimson Tide. All right, Alabama will have their A-Day spring game practice, whatever you want to call it now, tomorrow. And so what we're going to do on today's video, we're going to take a look at some players to watch. Now, Alabama did have their final scrimmage on Thursday, so I would assume they're probably not going to be doing a ton of, full throttle type of stuff. But I do still think there's going to be a good bit of fun things to watch on A-Day tomorrow. So this is actually what athletic trainer Jeff Allen had to say about A-Day. He's obviously been around for a very, very long time here. I think he's going on like A-Day number 18 with Alabama, something like that. He said, look, when you go to the past and you go to the A-Day and it's a game, well, everybody's seen a game all the time. I know people enjoy watching players play, but what you're going to get a chance to see on Saturday is something that you don't get a chance to see at all, and that's how do we practice. What do we go through? Because it's going to be a real practice. We've had open practices before, which it's been a long time since they've had that, if that is the case. But I don't know if we've ever had something like this where it's going to be a get after it kind of practice and you're going to see some competition and probably see some things that you wouldn't see in the game. Sometimes the A-Day games here or at other places, their spring games, are very scripted, this is what we're doing. This is going to be, they'll be doing one-on-one drills. They'll be doing 7-on-7 drills. You get a chance to watch the quarterbacks. I think from a fan's perspective, they'll see more out of this than what they would in a game. So there's some promising stuff there from Jeff Allen, I think. So I do think some people should be excited. So let me know here in the comment section, who are you excited to see in action on the A-Day if you are indeed going to A-Day? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section of today's video. All right, let's break it down here. We're going to do 5 players on offense, 5 players on defense, and sometimes I cheat and just say an entire unit like the quarterbacks here. Obviously, we got to talk about the quarterbacks, right? It's the biggest competition in this Alabama team right now. And, considering they had that scrimmage on Thursday, I would assume they're going to be doing more of that 7-on-7 stuff compared to some of that 11-on-11 stuff, but you might even see some of that towards the end of practice as well, just that competition type of stuff. But, if they do that kind of stuff, I think the big question is, who is going to be the most consistent guy back there? Who is going to be the guy that leads this offense? Because I do think consistency at the end of the day will be a major key for whoever ends up winning this quarterback battle, because I do think both Ty Simpson and Austin Mack, I think those are the 2 guys really in the running right now for that quarterback spot. I think both of those guys, we've heard they have a lot of backing from a lot of those players. So I think consistency is going to be the main thing when it comes to who's going to win that quarterback battle. All right, the next player here is Daniel Hill at that running back spot. There was a couple guys I thought about going with here, but Daniel Hill is a guy that really has received a lot of buzz here this spring, and it sounds like he's going to be a guy who the staff didn't necessarily expect to, make this jump that he has in this spring. But, from everything that I've read and heard, from the media, is that, we could legitimately see 3 running backs this year. Last year, mostly saw Jam Miller and Jalen Milroe as those main ball carriers for Alabama. But I would assume this year is going to be a little bit different in that regard, because you're not going to have a quarterback that's going to be taking a ton of snaps away from those running backs. Yeah, Ty Simpson and Austin Mack, I think those guys can run a little bit. But it's not going to be that, run-first mentality from that quarterback spot. So Daniel Hill, definitely a guy getting a lot of buzz. I would like to see how he performs on A-Day. So let me know here in the comment section at the pinned comment, actually, of today's video. I think we all know Jam Miller's running back 1, but who do you guys think is going to be running back 2? Type RY for Richard Young, DH for Daniel Hill, or DW if you think it's going to be Draylon Washington. That ad's going to come right here on YouTube. That is totally fine. Get down there to the pinned comment. Let me know who you guys think is going to be running back 2 this year for the Crimson Tide. Number 3 player to watch here on offense is Kam Dewberry. I think the main question right now along the offensive line is who is going to be that replacement for Tyler Booker. Alabama went out. They got Kam Dewberry out of the transfer portal, and he did not come to Alabama to be a backup in his final season of eligibility. But Geno Vandermark is also a legitimate option there at that left guard spot. And I do think, he's somebody that not a lot of people are talking about there, but I think he's a legit contender there for that left guard spot. And it'll also be interesting to see what kind of, mixing and matching they also do up front and how many reps each guy gets at that spot because, Kam Dewberry's really, it sounds like he's working at that left guard spot, but Geno Vandermark's also working at center. He's also working at right guard as well. And, you look at a guy like Jaden Roberts, he was hurt most of last season. The staff really raved about Geno Vandermark and the way he practiced. And they even said that, yes, Jaden Roberts was hurt last season, and that kind of caused some of that back and forth going in there with Geno. But, he really did earn that playing time because of that way he practiced. So I think that could be a battle that goes into the season at that left guard spot. We're just going to have to wait and see. But Kam Dewberry, Geno Vandermark, and even a guy like Ola Salinen as well at that left guard spot could be a potential there, for Alabama next season. Number 4 here is going to be Wilkin Formby. This to me, seems like he is the guy at right tackle. And obviously, he had a lot of ups and downs last season. I'll be honest, I like Wilkin Formby. I know I get cooked a lot in the comments section for saying that, but look, I do still think he was the better option over Elijah Pritchett last season. That South Florida game, though, did not help his case at all. And, I thought he performed well in that first game of the season. The second game of the season, he was pretty bad, but I didn't really think Elijah Pritchett was that much better than Wilkin Formby. When you talk about Formby, he looked a lot better late in the season. So I'm excited to see his development there at that right tackle spot because, like I said, Elijah Pritchett did get benched at the end of the year last season. Wilkin Formby played in, the last 3 or 4 games for Alabama. So I think he's just going to continue to get better and better, and I do like him at that right tackle spot. All right, the next player here is Jalen Hale at that wide receiver position. Could have gone with a lot of other guys here at this wide receiver spot because, by all accounts, this wide receiver room is absolutely loaded. You got guys like Isaiah Horton that I could have put on this list, Rico Scott, Latsier Brooks. But I am also interested to hear how, Jalen Hale is able to move around back there and, because he is coming back from that leg injury that he suffered last season during this springtime. So, coming back from injury, it's always interesting to see if he is able to return to performance, not necessarily return to play, but also return to performance there, because I do think Jalen Hale is going to be one of these wide receivers this year for Alabama that is really going to have an opportunity to break out because you got Ryan Williams, you got Jeremy Bernard, you got Isaiah Horton, and then Jalen Hale is just another weapon right there for you. As those starters, man, that is going to be insane. And then the depth as well is also going to be really, really nice there with, other guys like Rico Scott and Latsier Brooks. Even Jalen Mbakwe, Cole Adams. This room is absolutely loaded. And with Ryan Williams not participating in A-Day, you might get a good chance to see a lot of Jalen Hale. All right, we'll continue with some defensive players here in just a second, but today's show is presented by Game Time. Game Time makes getting tickets even faster and easier, and prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer you get to first pitch if you are indeed going to an MLB game. Obviously, you don't need tickets to go to A-Day. It's absolutely free. But if you want to go to Alabama baseball after A-Day, they have killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest prices guaranteed. And Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets for MLB. They also have concerts, comedy, theater, and you guys can save up to 60% off right now by buying last-minute tickets. They've got so many things on A-Day. Mentioned Alabama baseball right there, playing Mississippi State all weekend long. Also, got a lot of fun things. You got Talladega coming up. You got Braves baseball games just in the thick of things right now. Ended up beating Philadelphia last night in a absolutely crazy rain delayed. It was pretty much midnight, I believe, before that game actually got, over. But Braves games. You know, it's not that far of a drive actually to Atlanta from Tuscaloosa, so highly recommend that. Game Time even has the Game Time Picks feature that makes getting last-minute ticket buying even easier by quickly highlighting the best deals in the stadium. They have zone deals as well, so you guys can save even more when you choose a section and let Game Time choose the seat, because as long as you're in the same section, what really matters what seat it is at the end of the day. They have that all-in pricing feature as well. You toggle that feature on, and it shows you the total up front, so there are no surprise fees at checkout. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, and redeem promo code ChatSports for $20 off your first purchase. That link's in the comment section and the description of today's show. But remember, terms do apply. Create an account, redeem promo code CHATSPORTS, that's ChatSports, for $20 off your first purchase. That link's in the comment section and the description of today's video. So download the Game Time app today. They have last-minute tickets at the lowest prices, all guaranteed. All right, let's go over here to the defensive side of the ball now. I think that interior defensive line spot is really going to be key for Alabama this season. It's going to be interesting to see how these guys play here on A-Day, practice, whatever. The position group just in general in the interior right now does worry me a little bit. And, you know, we're going to talk tomorrow about some of those transfer portal options for Alabama, and interior defensive line is going to be there. But, you know, I do love Tim Keenan. I do love James Smith and Jeremiah Beeman as well. But I'm also interested in guys like Edric Hill, Isaiah Faga. Haven't heard a ton about them. You know, we've heard a little bit, you know, from some of those other, you know, players as well about some of those guys. But when they talk about the development of guys, they just kind of throw everybody's name out there. So, you know, it's not like a super notable thing when they throw their names out there, because they're literally listing off everybody and saying everybody's doing great, which might be, you know, true, but, you know, it's just, you know, they're going out there, they're, you know, hyping their teammates up at the end of the day. So I do think that interior defensive line spot is going to be interesting, because I do think Alabama kind of struggled last year in stopping the run at times. Will they have the dudes up front to shut down the opposing offenses on the ground next year? I think you got some solid starters there. I'm not quite sure about the backups. We'll see if they add in the transfer portal as well, but I'm excited to see what some of those, you know, not necessarily the starters, but the backups at that interior defensive line spot, how they're going to perform here on A-Day. So let me know here in the comment section, what is your confidence level in Alabama's interior defensive line? Scale it for me 1 to 10 in the comment section of today's show. All right, we go ahead and do both of these at the same time here. You got linebackers and Keon Keeley. Justin Jefferson, Deontay Lawson, both of those guys are going to be out. So you're going to see a lot of those backups there. You know, you got Nakai Hill-Green. They probably, you know, is going to be linebacker 3 there for Alabama, but you also got a lot of guys in that, you know, backup spots at that interior linebacker spot. Caden Jones, QB Reese, Darryl Johnson has gotten a lot of buzz so far in this spring. He seems like a guy that could possibly start next year for Alabama, which is really promising to hear. Maybe Caden Jones, QB Reese, Darryl Duke Johnson is going to be your possible 3 starting linebackers next year. You know, you got a lot of guys that are going to be working in the ones because those guys are going to be out. And they've been getting a lot of buzz here in the first, or getting a lot of run here with the first team. Justin Hill also at that Wolf spot. It's gotten a lot of buzz there too. Is it going to be enough, though, for him to jump a guy like Yanze Pierre at that Wolf 3 spot? I don't know, but, man, Justin Hill is a guy that a lot of people have been really high on this spring. Back to Keon Keeley here. Look, number 2 overall player coming out of that 2023 class, number 1 edge overall. You know, he has gone through a lot here in his time at Alabama. You know, position changes, body transformations over the last couple seasons. And, you know, look, even last, what was it, during December, January, when the last transfer portal came out, I even put him on our transfer portal candidates list. And, you know, I'll be honest, I hope I am not jinxing it right here, knock on wood, but, you know, I've got a ton of respect for Keon Keeley, just sticking around for as long as he has. You know, there are a ton of former 5-stars out there who have already transferred from the teams that, you know, they ended up going to out of high school. So I really hope he does get the opportunity to shine this year. You have guys like LG Overton, who is definitely your number 1 bandit this year. I think Jordan Renaud showed a lot of good signs last season when he played as well. I think right now he's probably your bandit 2. considering Jamarian Latham went over there to that Wolf spot. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Keon Keeley cannot find a way onto the field this season. I think, Kane Womack has shown that, if some of these guys aren't, putting up the production that they think they should, they're willing to put somebody else out there as well. So I got a lot of hope that Keon Keeley is able to find the field this season because, man, this kid does have just a tremendous amount of talent. We're going to go these last two guys here at the same time because they're both DBs. You got Dijon Lee, 5-star corner out of high school, and then you also got Calhoun out of the transfer portal, and I have him listed here at just DB instead of cornerback because I do think he could be a guy that also plays that Husky position as well. There's been so much buzz out of Dijon Lee and Calhoun. When you talk about the Pro Football Focus ratings, he was one of the highest. I think he was like top 2, top 3 corners coming out of college last season. So this defensive back room, obviously it's going to be Damani Jackson. It's going to be Zabian Brown over there at that other cornerback position as well. These guys are going to find their way on the field this season. It's just going to be up to Kane Womack and this Alabama coaching staff to figure out how they're going to do that. But I do think both wide receiver and this defensive back room is a major, major strength for Alabama this season. So name a defensive player that you guys think are going to break out here in 2025. Name that player down in the comments section of today's video.